my name's Jason Rowe. I'm a freelance travel photographer, videographer, writer and educator for the top photography sites Lightstalking and Fotsy.com. My images and footage have been used by websites, companies, publications across the world. These include National Geographic, Lonely Planet, Etihad, Qantas and a number of major newspapers in the UK. In this short video series, I'm going to introduce you to one of the most important aspects of good photography, the exposure triangle. Understanding the exposure triangle is key to pushing your photography beyond taking snaps towards taking beautiful, professional-looking images. It is the keystone of creativity in photography, the one vital element that unleashes all the power that your camera has to offer. Newcomers to photography will often stick their cameras on program mode. Many will be happy with this because they are getting technically great looking photos. Indeed, modern cameras with their incredible computing power and advanced algorithms will often flatter us. That sunset that you just captured on program mode may look amazing, but only because the camera has analysed the scene, calculated the exact exposure and white balance for that scene, then recorded it to your memory card. You were literally the button pusher. The thing is though, we as photographers and our cameras are so much better than that. We have incredibly creative minds and our cameras have a wealth of different modes to enable that creative mind. That leads us to the exposure triangle. The exposure triangle, in its most basic form, is a way of describing exactly how much light from our scene reaches our camera's sensor. Okay, you might say, if my camera is already doing that for me, why would I need to worry about it? Here's why. The exposure triangle, as its name clearly suggests, is made up of three elements: aperture, shutter speed and ISO. Aperture is the hole in your lens. Shutter speed is how long your sensor is exposed to the light for, and ISO is the sensitivity of that sensor. Each has multiple values, and changing any can have a profound effect on the way your image looks. By understanding how these 3 points of the exposure triangle work, you can unleash a large range of creative options, each of which will make your photography better. Let's have a look at what we will learn over the next 5 videos. In the next video, we will look at exactly what the exposure triangle is. We will look in depth at the balancing act between aperture, shutter speed and ISO, and how it affects the look of your image. We will also take a look at some of the tools your camera has to help you understand exposure. In the third video, we will look more in depth at the aperture element on the exposure triangle. We will take a look at what aperture is, how you control it, and how different apertures will make your images look very different. We will look at an important technique called depth of field. We will also look at the balancing act between aperture and shutter speed and take a brief look at the mysteries of bokeh. In video 4, we will take a look at shutter speed and in particular how shutter speed controls the amount of light reaching your sensor. We will look at the differences between a fast shutter speed and a slow one and how that changes the way a photograph will look. You will get to look at why you might get blurry photos when using a slow shutter speed and dark photos if your shutter speed is too high. Video 5 will concentrate on the last of the 3 exposure triangle points, ISO. ISO is generally the last option that we will choose in the exposure triangle, and in this video we will go into the reasons as to why that is. We will look at why, in most cases, you should use a low ISO, but also what effect using a high ISO will have on the look of your final image. We will look at the relationship between ISO, aperture and shutter speed, and what creative decisions you need to make in order to prioritize one over the other. Lastly, in video 6, we will recap all of the major points that we have learned in videos 2 through 5. I will also demonstrate 3 case studies where the exposure triangle has been an important element in getting the final shot. So, if you are ready, let's head over to the first main video and take a look at just exactly what the exposure triangle is.